Om and peace. Welcome to Yoga New Humanity. I am Father Brian Rice, also Swami Sivananda Brahmanati from the Silver Violet Maitri Swami Order. And today I just wanted to give the second half of yoga as described by Swami Sivananda here on Temple of the New Humanity TV. Okay, let's get right back into it. He says that the object of yoga is to weaken what are called the 5 afflictions. And those 5 afflictions, he says, are ignorance, egoism, likes, dislikes, and the instinct of self-preservation or clinging to bodily life. Now, ignorance is the fertile soil which bears an abundant crop of the rest. On account of ignorance, only egoism is manifested. And wherever there is egoism, there invariably exists likes and dislikes, and the rest side by side. Now, clinging to bodily life or fear of death is born of likes only. It is nothing but attachment. Now, egoism, it is a specific form of ignorance. What happens is the mind gets itself attached wherever there is pleasure. If the mind likes, for instance, a pomegranate fruit, it gets attached to this fruit as it derives pleasure from eating it. The mind, it likes to run. It likes to be in movement and in motion. I'm adding that in. But Sivananda says the mind runs after things that have been associated with agreeable experiences in the past. This attachment, this is attachment. It is a like. The mind runs away and it gets the heck out of there from objects which have caused pain. So the things we avoid, the things that we might need to face the most, not even just our fears, but things that make us uncomfortable or things that are going to really cause us to grow or enable us to grow. The things that seem like curses are, in fact, as I'm telling you from my heart and experience, are blessings. But we do avoid pain. This is dislike. These are all the faults of man. Now, the world can never hurt you, Sivananda says. The 5 elements are your best teachers. Talking about earth, water, fire, air, and ether. They help you in a variety of ways. The things created by, Sivananda uses the word Lord. I would use cosmic mind, God consciousness, God presence, light presence, divine mind, primal God energy. The things created by this source are all beneficial. It is only the creation of man that brings pain and misery. These 5 afflictions bind you to the outside objects and reduce you to piteous slavery. And he says that these afflictions remain as tendencies even when they are inoperative. these afflictions and tendencies can be attenuated, changed, or lessened, or muted by yogic discipline. So, what really does ignorance do? What are the negative effects of ignorance? He says, on the count of ignorance, we have forgotten our primitive divine glory. On account of this evil, we are not able to remember our old status of, and some of you might want to call me a heretic, and Sivananda as well, and many yogis, rishis, sages from India. Godhood, your immortal, blissful divine nature. We were made in the image and likeness of God. It doesn't mean that we were made to be women and men and bodies and humans. We are not the God, though we are one with the God, the transcendent, the immanent presence of deity. But we can become through divinization, and in fact are already, but we are just unaware because of egoic structures, blocks, obstacles that have been constructed to convince us that have caused us to dissociate from our true self. That, again, original, immortal, blissful, divine nature. Now, ignorance is mentioned as the root cause of egoism, likes, dislikes, and the rest. These 5 afflictions are great impediments to yoga. They stand as stumbling blocks to the attainment of the goal of every yogi, every desiring practitioner of yogic science and art, that of self-realization. Now, these 5 afflictions, they, Sivananda says, remain in a dormant, attenuated, muted, overpowered, or fully developed state. It's either one of those. When the husband begins to quarrel with the wife, his love for her becomes dormant, and he shows dislike for her for the time being. You know, me and working out my karma as a householder Swami of a new contemporary order, and and also fulfilling my role as an independent Catholic priest, one who can marry through the liberal Catholic tradition. I've had to learn how to be a developing sage, developing yogi, a developing Swami, an evolving Swami, an evolving priest, through the institution of marriage. And my wife is a sounding board, my wife is a mirror to many of my qualities, or does make me aware of many of the things and tendencies that I have. And so karma is very much worked out in the presence of a marriage and in a household. It's not any easier by being either a cleric or being identified with the archetypes that usually are identified, that are usually the hermit or the monk. I can't be a hermit and a husband. It just doesn't work. But I will admit that even through advancements that I've been able to make, there's still that ego presence there. I haven't reached Nirvikalpa Samadhi and final Mahasamadhi in my exit from this world yet, nor have I attained moksha, liberation. So again, there's these slivers that when my wife is nagging at me, yelling at me, trying to either control a situation or trying to impose something onto me, instead of perceiving it as a neutral event, there's a little voice, a little tendency, samskara tendency, habit, negative karma that interferes. And what does it do? It gives me the reminder of what it feels like to experience pain through a subjective experience, a relative experience of pain. Now, everything that happens to us is neutral. Neutral. How we choose to react to it is up to us. Whether it's going to be pleasurable or painful, or it's not going to scar or touch us at all, or wound us. There is no wound. There never is a wound. There was never any wounds that were experienced by Yeshua Jesus, the person. Even through all the destruction that took place of his body, he was so identified with that state of neutrality or that state of unconditional love that it couldn't hurt him. It couldn't hurt him, and though it did kill his body, the real self never died. The real self was unveiled in the body that he died in, dematerialized. So, yes, when a quarrel happens with my wife, I'm human and I still have remnants of an ego and I experience pain and I avoid it, and therefore it is a dislike that I am subconsciously manifesting. And the love returns when that pain seems to subside. In a yogic student, these afflictions become thinned out or attenuated by the spiritual force of his yogic practices, says Sivananda. But they do exist in a subtle state. They cannot do any havoc. They are like the cobra whose poisonous fangs have been extracted by the snake charmer. The overpowered state is that state in which one set of impressions is kept under restraint for some time or another by another powerful set of impressions, but they manifest again. When the cause of the suppression is removed, in a worldly man with passions and appetites, these can be seen operating in a full swing. But in a fully developed or full-blown yogi, these afflictions and impressions are burnt in toto. Now continuing, owing to ignorance, we have mistaken the physical body for ourself. And this is all the mistake, the only mistake that we've really made. But it's a serious one indeed, says Sivananda. By changing our mental outlook, by purifying our heart and intellect, we can attain knowledge of self. Mind, prana, body, and the senses are all instruments only. The real seer is the self who is pure, unchanging, eternal, self-luminous, self-existent, self-contained, infinite, and immortal. When you begin to identify yourself with this immortal, all-pervading self, all miseries come to an end. Likes and dislikes, are the causes for doing good and evil deeds, he says. Good and evil deeds bring pleasure and pain, or the perception of pleasure and pain. Thus, the round of births and deaths, the whole idea of reincarnation, is kept from time immemorial by the six-spoked wheel of likes, dislikes, virtue, vice, pleasure, and pain. That's a small discourse in these 2 episodes here on Yoga New Humanity of Yoga and Swami Sivananda. I hope they spark some desire to go into contemplation, self-examination, not intense self-scrutiny, but rather just self-observation, and trying to develop that witness consciousness that watches, that sees, the perceiver, not the experiencer of these afflictions. So it's up to us, really, it is. We can be freed from these afflictions. We need only surrender. We need only exercise our will that is aligned with absolute peace, that is united in one with the love of God, with the bliss of God, in transcendence and a spirit of self-offering, offering our true self up, offering up our ego to be sacrificed, transmuted, overcome. Thank you for joining me. Om. 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 Namaste and Namaskar.